Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the Good Vibes Lounge, where we meet the people where they are and empower them with spiritual wisdom. I'm Reverend Mitch. I'm the director and founder of the lounge, and I'm honored that you have decided to join me this evening. Tonight's broadcast is being streamed on the lounge's YouTube channel and Facebook page. Replays will be available on those platforms as well. So if you like what you hear, please share the recording and follow us on Facebook. The links are in the description box below. And while you're here, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support is appreciated. Oh, and for your listening pleasure, the instrumental you just heard was Motivation by Miss Kelly Rowland. I used it under fair use, so don't come for me, YouTube. But with that said, how are you all doing this evening? Oh, good evening, Miss Rosetta. How are you doing? Now, I'm just getting situated here. Bear with me a few. So, I hope you all are doing good and more people will be joining. But I just want to hop right into it. For tonight's good life lessons, as I call it, I wanted to revisit my forgiveness sermon from last month. I wanted to clarify a few things. So if you haven't seen it, you can go to the playlist on the Lounge's YouTube channel and see it there. It's called Awaken to Forgiveness. And I said what I said then because I believe it needed to be said, because you can only act like you don't see something for so long, right? And in most groups, whether it be a work group, church group, family, or whatever, there's always that one person or there's always that one segment who choose not to think beyond a certain point, right? Especially when it comes to people who they have an affinity for. So let me give you an example here. I remember being in a meeting once and a new idea, a great idea would be presented. But the old guard in the room shot it down because, in their minds, that wasn't part of Tony's vision, right? And I'm using the name Tony as an example because we all know a Tony, right? And so the idea would come up, but there would be no movement on the idea, which again was a great idea that could have taken the vision to the next level if the consciousness was there. Now, Tony's vision was fantastic, right? It was incredible. If we were still in 1997 when he first got the vision. But some people, the old guard, if you will, were so infatuated with Tony that they couldn't think beyond him. They were still trying to do 1997 things in 2015. And I'm sure you know what came of it. And that's no shade at all to anyone because this happens to all of us, right? I had quite a few Tonys that I rode for and followed until I realized that I wasn't going far, right? Nothing was growing for me, nothing was working. What was showing up wasn't making sense. So I had to pause and learn how to think for myself, right? Not go against Tony, but I had to go further. And I bring this up because I encounter too many people who remain stuck because they're so loyal to their Tony, whatever that may be. They're not even loyal to their own healing, they're loyal to a personality. They're loyal to a flawed perception that makes them feel good. And a point of my sermon was to go beyond the old guard to do what works now, right? And so that's one crowd who may have misunderstood me, those who can't see beyond 1997. Now, the other crowd, especially in New Thought, are those who are so metaphysical that they appear detached from reality, right? And I'm not making fun of anyone. I'm not. I promise you I'm not. But have you ever seen a metaphysical teacher who was all over the place? And please don't put nobody's name in the chat or comment section. But what I mean all over the place is there was no objective in their presentation. There was no thesis, no point. No, nothing. It was just vibes. I mean, well, no pun intended, but even with the lounge, even with what I do here, or even with what we do at UTC or in the UFBL at large, for the most part, we're taught to be as structured and organized with our lessons as possible, or we risk losing folks because this stuff is already heady. So being scattered on top of that is insane. So that's what I can appreciate, excuse me, about us. And let me reiterate, I'm not making fun of anyone's style. All I'm saying is that a few of us have backed ourselves into a corner trying to be so spiritual, right? That we come off as lacking discipline and values. And it shows up in how you treat people. It shows up in how you talk to people. You know, during my sermon, I call these folks the mountaintop people. Like they do stuff in the valley, but then want to run to the mountaintop. They want to sit Indian style and act like they didn't do nothing. See, that's what I don't like. Like, I don't deal with friends like that. I don't deal with family like that. And for what? Like, how can you build with people like that? How can you have peace with people like that? Please, somebody in the chat, let me know. How can you build and have peace with unaccountable people? People who we continue to allow in our space. That's why I wanted to revisit this topic tonight. Revisiting forgiveness. It's right there on your screen. Revisiting forgiveness. That's the topic. Because as I said during my sermon, I will never talk about forgiveness and not talk about accountability. Sorry, that won't happen. And I'm not going to let anyone twist my words or twist my points because you choose to remain stuck in 1997 or because you're on a cloud floating somewhere. Now, again, you have a right to do whatever you want to do. That's just not what we're doing over here, especially as we seek to build a community of responsible individuals. Now, first things first, in my lesson, I went over the ARC acronym. Y'all remember that? It was the ARC. And it stands for three things. Well, I'll get there in a moment. Let me say this because I have the source where I found stuff. So the ARC acronym was developed by Dr. William Darity Jr. and A. Kirsten Mullen. They are two scholars in the reparations movement. And as I indicated, whether you're talking about an economic repair, spiritual repair, or relational, the principle will always be the same. The principle is justice, it's love, it's order, it's healing. See, that's the root of it. In truth, that's what we're seeking to experience and express. And so, giving credit to the source or those who created that. So, the ARC acronym, the ARC acronym stands for three things: A, acknowledgement, R, redress, and C, closure. All right. If you may want to make a mental note of that, or if you got a pen and paper, you can write it down. The A is acknowledgement, R, redress, and the C is closure. Now, acknowledgement, the first part, that's hard for some of us. But acknowledgement simply says to admit the harm that was done, right? Just acknowledge what was done. Even if it was a mistake or a misunderstanding, which happens, that's fine. Just acknowledge it, especially when you see someone was wounded by what you may have done. Because sending thoughts and prayers and good vibes only, that's not it. That's not it. That's really not it, family. People want to be bosses, but they never want to take ownership. And I don't get that. See, being spiritual has nothing to do with being perfect. It's about being real. It's about doing everything in your power to align with truth, no matter what. And not just in your thoughts, but in your actions as well. It starts with you, it starts with your thinking, and it expresses in your behavior and in your life, world, and affairs. That's how we make this practical, right? Now, some individuals would say, well, Mitch, it sounds like you're trying to control people. Why do we got to acknowledge anything? Why not just let go and let God? Absolutely not. No. See, that's a cop out. And my question to you is, well, why didn't you take your own advice before you did what you did? Why didn't you let go and let God? Excuse me. Why didn't you let go and let God before you hurt that individual? See, I can't go there with you, family. And when I say you, I don't mean you tuning in, unless this is about you, but I'm not trying to, accuse anybody. That's what I'm trying to do. That's not what I'm trying to do. But the point is that you caused harm, right? You hurt somebody. You overstepped your bounds. I don't care about your age. I don't care about your title. I don't care how much you can quote H. Emily Cady or the Bible. You were out of order. Acknowledge what you did, but not only do you choose not to acknowledge it, you walk around acting like that person did something to you. Ooh, see, this is when people get snatched up for real. How do people move like that? Trust me, I know I have a lot more years to live, a lot more wisdom to gain, but I don't get how anyone can move in such a delusion. Now, let me add this footnote because there's always a backstory to my sermons. I respect the UTC platform, so I don't say certain things, even though I can still say some wild stuff sometimes. But, Kevin Lewis, Anita Greer's husband, he keeps trying to mic me up every time I give a sermon up there. He keeps trying to give me a lavalier mic to clip on me, him, Garfield, and Andrew. And I tell him, no, I got to stand behind the mic or I got to stand behind the podium. I tell them that because, y'all, the moment I go off script and start walking back and forth, it's going to be a problem up there because the things that people do, I'm not going to coddle, right? I'm not going to be quiet about it, especially when it's harmful. Like I've seen too many people hurt and kill themselves literally over church people, over mountaintop folks. And enough is enough. Nobody is that important to where they think they can do whatever they want to do and not be held accountable. Like, I don't even know how some folks can arrive at such a weird conclusion. And this is just the first stage acknowledgement. Just acknowledge what you did. And the interesting part is that for most people, you don't even have to do the full arc, right? If you just acknowledge what you did and apologize, most people will be okay with that. It's the simple stuff that folks don't want to do. But these are the same people who kind of wonder why folks keep distance, or they wonder why everywhere they go, they have a problem with people. And the last thing that I'll say about this, for folks who say that the ARC is about control, on the contrary, because if you don't know what you did, or if you don't want to acknowledge it, then how can we change it? Right? How can we work on it? How can we move forward? And if you don't acknowledge it, you risk repeating it. Like we don't do these half a apologies that, oh, well, if you think I did something wrong, I apologize. What? Like, how is that an apology? Like you could have kept, see, that's the gaslighting. See, that's the deflection that I'm talking about. And you want us to have community and build with that. And that's not shade, that's a legit question. But that's acknowledgement. Then there's redress. That's the R. And that simply says fix what you broke. After you acknowledge what you did, fix it. I gave this example during my sermon with Kevin Rutledge. If I got you fired from a job, then I need you to okay, let me start over. If I got you fired from a job then I need to get you rehired, or I need to help you find employment of equal or greater value elsewhere. And and if you experience any financial hardships during the time you were out of work, then I need to compensate you in money, time, resources, or whatever for that too. Yeah, redress is all of that. Just saying my bad and God is and walking away. No, no, no. And if that sounds like too much, then hey, don't mess around with people. And lastly, C, which is closure. And this simply says, don't do it again. End of story. Now, how in the world does this not sit right with folks? And I don't want to come off judgy, but it concerns me how people speak of the divinity of folks, but carry on the way that they do sometimes. Like, how does the ark not sit right with your soul? Like, what's wrong with your soul? Oh, snap. Let me check the chat. Sorry, I had it covered over here. Let me acknowledge you all. Uh, good evening, Miss Rosetta. Uh, hey, Angie, how are you? I love your authenticity. Thank you. And that's an A word that keeps coming up. You're not the first one who said that. Um, um, Regina was, hey, Miss Reggie, you can't happen with integrity. Well, I think I said something earlier. Because they're not at peace. Angie says, dog, I should have checked this while I was at it. Sorry, you all. Um, Phyllis, how are you? Good evening. Just going through it, wanting to acknowledge you all. Hey, Bernie, so fix what you broke is the answer. Absolutely. That's what it is. Sometimes sorry can get things moving, but you can tell, it's the effort that counts, right? I mean, sorry, sure, that's a good step, but when you take the actions, when you understand, okay, I did something that was out of order, whatever that may be, let me help you fix it. Like that does something to you. That's like, oh, snap. They mean it. Just going that further step, why not? And this is so powerful. Thank you. And I hope it helps. I really hope it helps. And now let me show some grace here because it's likely that people have never done the arc or an arc like process because they were harmed and the person that harmed them, they didn't do it for them. So you never really had an example of how to make things right, which is why the natural instinct is to run away or to detach when stuff goes wrong, which is unfortunate. So I'll show grace in that regard. But now that you know what you know, right? Now that you've expanded, I'm gonna need for us to do better because you cannot continue the cycle of harm onto other people just because somebody did it to you. That's not okay. Heal yourself, do the arc for yourself, which you can do that. Acknowledge how you feel, acknowledge what was done, acknowledge, yeah, I don't feel good about this. Then take time to engage in self care. Take time to honor yourself. Take time out to tend to your needs, spiritual and physical, and close out by ensuring that you will never deprioritize yourself again. Close out by agreeing, excuse me, to never revisit this again unless wisdom can be gained from it. See, family, my whole position, and I would even say my whole ministry is just treat folks right because people are putting the pressure on me to bring millennials and Gen Z in. Excuse me. You know, people are putting the pressure on me to bring young people in. And a part of me asks why? So they can deal with you and leave? Nah, like there needs to be a cultural reset. There needs to be a consciousness reset in regards to how we engage with one another in the church, in our families, in our households, everywhere. You know, I'm sad to say that, you know, a lot of my family that I grew up with, I don't talk to them. I can't talk to them. You know, it because I saw what you did. I saw what you said, you know, and it's not me holding on to it. But the thing is that if you're still doing the same thing to this day, then why am I going to throw myself in the lion's den like that? See, that's when you love at a distance. Oh, let me check your comments, fam. Angie, sometimes sorry is a PR move. Absolutely. See, here's what I'll say it's a PR move if there's not changed behavior. It's a PR move if you don't do the redress and closure. No, I strongly feel that. If you can't fix what you broke, at least help me or support me in fixing it, because shoot, I attracted you. But if you can't go further, then to me it's like, okay, what do you really want? I guess they want the benefits, whatever they were. What's up, Michael? I'm glad you can join. And nice, oh, snap, nice suit you got on in the profile. And Miss Rose, I like that, a reset. Oh, absolutely. We have to have that hard reset. Of course, it starts within us first, then it vibrates out. Yeah, we need that sometimes if we want something new and better, because what's always new isn't better. If we want something new, we got to reset. We got to step out of that Tony consciousness. Hey, Pastor dropping gems. Thank you. Thank you. Now I'm just letting it flow and I hope it helps folks. Now, but the final thing that I want to say before I go to our reflection questions for tonight, three things actually, just for clarity, is that number one, the arc won't necessarily bring reconciliation. Okay. The arc is an accountability, it's an act of accountability, right? It's an act of atonement, it's an act of making something right. What Bernie said earlier, fixing what you broke. It's gesture. It's that gesture that matters. You do it with no expectation from the person you're doing it for. You do it to plant the seed of peace. You do it because you know the second principle, the divinity of everybody, yourself and others, or the divinity of humankind. Right? Number two, you perform the arc for the person or persons that you harmed. Right? You don't need to do it for those on the outside reacting. For example, if I accidentally hit your car, now I don't injure you at all, but if I hit your car, I don't need to do the arc for your best friend who's mad at me for hitting your car. Like, no, my arc is with you. Now, sure, I get the anger though, because the outcome could have been different had I hit that car a little bit harder. But as long as I do right by the person whose car I hit, everybody else should be fine. Should be fine. Now, will they be? That's a different story. Get me? So just allow God to lead you through the arc and let the main thing be the main thing. All right. And lastly, number three, after you perform the arc, it's up to the other person to accept the gesture and to heal. Right. They may still keep distance. They may still have their walls up. They may still have boundaries, and that's okay, right? Well, they should have boundaries, honestly. Or it may be a little bit more visible. You may feel it a bit more than before, and that's cool. That's understandable when a person is trying to heal. As long as you do what you can to infuse peace into the situation, then you can let go and let God do the rest. Are you here, family? Miss Rose, yes, good vibrations are where it's at. Absolutely. Good vibes. Mr. Michael, we have to be of a different mindset to bring people to the church. Right. I agree. And as I shared with everyone, I want to give kudos because we've gotten better, right? And this isn't when I talk, let me be clear that is not directed at UTC only. Let me be honest, only. This is for everybody. Because I think like most of us, we grew up in the church. So it's it's everywhere you go almost. And we always say if you see it everywhere you go, then maybe there's something in you. Maybe. And I'm open to the Holy Spirit to reveal what I need to work on. But yeah, but I just want to make that clear that, the target wasn't UTC, but it's a bigger picture for me. Because when I was up there that Sunday during the sermon, Pentecostal, the Kojic stuff came like it was really, it, oh, I went on a journey up there. But yeah, I just wanted to make that clear. I love my center. We, that's home. And there's no other place I would rather be. Right. But we have now gotten to the reflection portion. Hold on. Reflection. So let me bring up the questions. Do I have it here? Hold on. Boom. Yes. So there are. So as usual, I have some questions that I want you to reflect on. And the first question is, am I able to acknowledge when I've done wrong to another person? Am I able to acknowledge when I've done wrong to another person? Like, answer that one honestly. Like, what is your method or approach to acknowledging an error? Like, if you're unsure, then how would you want someone to acknowledge their wrongdoing to you? In other words, after we do the spiritual work, how would you then make it right with the other person? These sub questions kind of help you understand the main question. So that's the only reason I'm asking. But am I able to acknowledge when I've done wrong to another person? I've gotten better at that. But first, sometimes a person may need to tell me what I did wrong because I think some stuff I will say, I'm not trying to give no one an excuse, but sometimes people don't know, right? So sometimes you just have to gently let them know in a nice way, folks. But question two, do I weaponize my unforgiveness against others who've wronged me? Mm. Do I weaponize my unforgiveness against others who've wronged me? Do you hold grudges? Do you try to force or guilt people into doing the arc process? And have you, oh, and this is a good one, have you ever delayed your own healing because you were waiting on the other person to own up to what they did, huh? Ooh, that came up to me. That came to me when I was driving one day. I'm like, wow, what is this? I'm guilty. How have your unforgiveness served you? And again, it's all going back to the main question: do I weaponize my unforgiveness against others who have wronged me? All right. Question 3: how do I find peace in a situation where the person who harmed me refuses to acknowledge it? How do I find peace in a situation where the person who harmed me refuses to acknowledge it? And this is a biggie. And I only ask this because, unfortunately, which you all know, family, in a lot of cases, we will never receive the apologies that we deserve. So, how will you handle that? Or how do you handle that? Like, how do you become okay with that? How do you let go and find peace? Describe your method, because all of us are different and we handle things differently. Like, I know with me, I cut off access. Whether you get blocked from my phone or on social media, where like I have to cut off access, I have to create distance. And of course, I have to do the spiritual work too, just, go through that process of journaling, praying, just trying to see the good somewhere, but being open and willing and receptive to what I need to change about myself. Because we allow a lot of stuff. But yeah, so how do you find peace in such a situation? And lastly, question 4, and I always add this one at the end. Since our last broadcast, list 2 things that I did that were fun or relaxing. Because, folks, we got to have some playtime too. We got to enjoy ourselves. We got to enjoy life. As I said before, we're here to do spiritual work and play. All right. Now, remember that these questions are for your eyes only. Now, if you want to share, of course, let us know. But for some stuff, this stuff goes deep. So I don't want to make you feel like you have to answer in the chat or comments. No, no, no. These are for you to reflect on and to discuss within your circle. Right. Let me bring this. Oh, I'm back. I didn't realize that took up the whole screen. All right. And so I'm just reading the comments. Angie, yes, I have. And I know it's okay if they don't acknowledge it. Good. I'm getting to that point because there's still that activist in me who need you to say you wrong and say, but I'm, I'm working on that. I'm getting better though. But yeah, I'm still there a little bit with some cases. I know it's not about me after lots of reflection. Absolutely. We just have to tell our brains that is not about us. And eventually the subconscious will accept it. Eventually. But family, I do have, we have reached the end. And I do have some stuff to share with you on the bulletin board, which is our announcements. Do have something to share. Let me make it bigger that way. So, the closing announcement. The next show will be next week, Tuesday, May 28th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So it's a back-to-back feature this month since I wasn't available last week. So subscribe if you haven't already so you can be notified as soon as we go live. If you're a millennial or Gen Z tuning in, let me know in the chat or comments or email me. I would love to connect with you. 3, I'll be giving a lesson at UTC on Sunday, June 23rd. A few have asked. So save the date and come through or watch us online. Um, Watch us online if you're not local. The service starts at 9:50 a.m. Eastern. And speaking of, when you go to the lounge's YouTube page, I added a playlist there where you can see all of my lessons so far. So it's all there in one place for you to review if you're interested. And speaking of UTC, please visit their website at youtruthcenter.org and follow them on social media to stay up to date with what's going on. And lastly, replays of our broadcast are available in the live tab on the YouTube page and on our Facebook page. So when you go to Facebook, you should see the video there. If not, then go to the videos tab. If you're on YouTube, just go to the live tab and you should see the replays there. And if you need to reach out to me for anything, my email is in the description box below. And that, family, concludes tonight's broadcast. I want to thank you all so much for being on and for spending your evening with me. Miss Reggie, 30 minutes next Tuesday, too. Right. You know what? I've been going up to like 50 minutes some days, so I'm going to try to. I don't think I'm gonna meet that 30-minute mark because I can't just cut off when I'm cooking, you know. When it's getting good, I want to just cut it off like that. But I don't want it to be too long either. So I'll find my groove eventually. We're getting things off the ground here. Um, Angie, you are very welcome. Thank you, Bernie. Thank you so much for the support and family. It was a pleasure as usual. If this helped you, or if you think that this may help another person, please share the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on social media. It really does help the algorithm. But help us send good vibes out into the world because we need it. And with that said, family, I now leave you with our prayer of protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and so it is. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Join us next week. Good night and good vibes.